Good night. It is February 4, 2026. And it's a Wednesday. Right? Yeah. Here in Sherbrooke, it is currently -6 degrees Celsius, so not too cold for this time of year, 21 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun this morning rose at 7:05 a.m. It's set at 4:58 p.m. We are 2 minutes shy of the sun setting at 5 p.m. One more minute, and we have a post 1700 hours sunset. Quite excited for that. That's 9 hours and 53 minutes of sunlight. I've not been outside today at all. Probably should, since it's so, I was going to say unseasonably warm, but more like unseasonably not -20 plus degrees Celsius. But I also don't, I'm going to go and go to the depth later, but today I have this feeling of dread. I don't know why. Well, sort of. Was dehydrated. Haven't eaten anything since early this afternoon, which is likely why. But also I've just been feeling guilty. Because I feel like I'm not getting enough accomplished. I feel guilty because so a friend of mine and then somebody who I met at a staff Christmas party for this music venue where I work want to try to set up some music making to try to start up an experimental music project. And then my friend, I set it up with him like, hey, although I guess it's not really like my fault, because I know he's pretty busy. And then a few weeks ago, I tried to set it up with him, and he was like, "Well, we can do it next week." But I didn't hear back from him. But I also didn't reach out. That's the thing. Also, like, I tend to put a lot of like blame on myself of like, if I try to set up something social with somebody else, with other people, it doesn't work out. I tend to just put all the blame on myself. Whereas, like, it's not even necessarily a question of blame, but he also did not follow up with me. So it's like that part's not my fault, you know what I mean? But then, because it's always something I want to do, but then I haven't been following up, or like, trying to get this happening again. Just kind of been feeling like overwhelmed, and I don't know, it's a new situation. And I'm also waiting for another synthesizer in the mail. That's another part of the guilt, is that I bought another synthesizer, which actually might have like an issue with it, and I'm really hoping it doesn't. Although I saw a fix on the internet, but if I do that, then that's going to void the warranty. But the manufacturer doesn't really seem to want to actually fix the problem, so what good is the warranty anyway? But it's actually like a newer version with a couple of changes of a synthesizer I already have, which I will show you in a moment. I want to show you my modular synthesizer setup that I have currently. But yeah, like, it's not the smartest financial decision, definitely not, but I did it impulsively last night. But I really wanted it, even though I know that there might be an issue. But I can always return it, or try to fix it, but I could only use that money for something else. But it's like, also, it's not going towards like alcohol or drugs. But then there's a part of my mind where I'm like, well, okay, now that I spent all this money on this music gear, well, I gotta stop drinking, right? Because I gotta like compensate for that. Which is, I don't think it's gonna work. Even though my drinking is making me feel miserable in my life right now. And I also know that if I am not drinking, I'm going to need to find something else to occupy my time, and this could be something to occupy my time. So I guess, yeah, I'll show you. And as far as like other stuff, I'm gonna give some blood tomorrow. Like I don't work until next week. So I'm gonna give some blood tomorrow, and maybe if I get the courage, I'll reach out to those two people to try to set something up. I'm going to be working a lot in March though, which is really good. Oh, and the thing that was stressing me out the most about my life right now was finding a new roommate, because my roommate is moving out, and I was really stressed out with the idea of like not being able to find a new roommate, because my roommate, he's not just my roommate, he's a very good friend of mine. He's leaving in like March or April. But then yesterday, I guess maybe I'll talk about this another time, more in depth, about like Deus ex machina like coincidences that changed my life. That don't like assign any sort of like significance other than that they're just coincidences. But like I always just manage to like just scrape on by. And often when I feel at my lowest, just something is going to happen that is going to fix a lot of my problems. So yeah, my roommate ran into a friend of ours who doesn't live in Sherbrooke, just by chance on the street downtown. And our friend said, "Hey, I'm looking to move back to Sherbrooke, and I'm looking to find a place to stay." And then my roommate's like, "Well, I'm leaving," and our other friend didn't even know that my roommate was leaving anyway. And so our friend came over and checked the place out. He's like, "Yeah, wanna move in." So with just one, I mean, it just happenstance that they just ran into each other. This huge amount of stress is taken off my shoulders. I mean, it's not finalized yet, so I'm still a bit stressed out, but it's a huge burden off my shoulders, and that's why I allowed myself to impulsively order another synthesizer off the internet. Now I can't switch my camera around while I'm recording for some odd reason, so I hope you'll be able to see what's going on here. Can you see here? Okay, so this is... Oh, shit. Something was freaking out. Okay, so this one... God damn it. Let's see if I can, like, see. Yeah, okay, so this is the Behringer K2, which is a clone of the Korg MS-20, which is my favorite synthesizer of all time. And I got this in some point during the pandemic, during lockdown. It just showed up on the website for this synthesizer shop in Montreal. And it was super cheap. I just bought it, and it just disappeared from the site the next day. I think they were just trying to get rid of it. And so I ordered a new version of this. The difference is it does not have the CV input for the second oscillator. However, it does have a volt per this is hertz per volt. It has a volt per octave input for both oscillators, and then also they added a CV input for pulse width modulation, which is really cool. But the issue is that so there are two filters. There's the old filter, the Rev 1 filter, and the Rev 2 filter. The issue is that in the Rev 1 filter, some units, according to somebody on the internet who tested the heat of different components, it's an op amp that is just, I don't know, something's wrong with where it's placed, or I don't really quite understand enough about electronics to know what could cause the issue. However, it is overheating. And so it causes the resonance of, I think it's just a low-pass filter, or I forget which filter it is, to just like not work anymore, or not work correctly after a certain amount of time that the unit is on. So hopefully that's not the problem, not a problem with what I'm going to receive. However, it is possible to maybe fix it by putting a heatsink in that area, but that would, that would mean I would have to open it up and stick a heat sink on there, which might not be a very good idea. Other than that, I have here, you can see the Behringer 961 is a clone of the Moog 961. Basically, the types of triggers and gates are not compatible with each other. So this uses S-trig, which means that it's when the signal is shorted to ground that it's going to send out a trigger or a gate. And the zero rack modules use V-trig, which means that it's when the signal just goes up to 5 volts. That'll be considered a trigger or a gate. I have the Abacus here, which is a clone of the Make Noise Maths, which I feel bad because I like Make Noise, but this was less than 20% of the price. I've got a buffered mult, which just like duplicates signals, but it's active, so there's going to be no voltage drop. Got the Mod DMix, which is a ring modulator, mixer, VCA. Then I got the function junction. Oh yeah, by the way, the Make Noise Maths, or in this case the Abacus, is mixer, slew limiter, voltage offset generator. It's a function generator, LFO, oscillator. It's great. And this one's got an ADSR envelope, function generator, sort of similar to these channels. It's got a mixer, it's got an LFO. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So it's essentially just a bunch of modulation for the K2. But I've been having a lot of fun. And what's fun too is just like sorry, it just went all the way into my face. Into my nose. Unpleasant. Yeah, using these modules to try to like fix issues that like. So I figured out earlier, like I had some triggers that were not being converted from S-trig to V-trig in like coming out of the K2 of the clone of the MS-20. Like if there's like a switch you can send out a gate, and that was getting converted correctly, but the output of the ESP, the external signal processor, and the keyboard trigger out just weren't getting converted, right? And I figured out that it was an amplitude issue. So I used one channel of the Abacus to put a voltage offset to raise the amplitude. And then it worked. If you're not into synthesizers, that's probably not very interesting. I've been thinking about the pandemic, because I watched the movie Eddington, Ari Aster's latest film, which I don't really know how to feel about. I can't say it's a bad movie, and I can't say it's a good movie. There's parts I really like about it, others that I don't. For example, I do really enjoy the way some of the satirical. It's weird because like this movie's like it's a satire, but it's not really very funny. I mean, there are some funny parts, but generally it's not very funny. It deals with some really interesting subjects, but in a lot of ways, I feel like not in a like particularly nuanced way, which is not necessary to successfully explore topics. But some of it I find it to be very on the nose, like or like some of the aspects that are the most interesting were the ones that I found were explored in a more shallow way. And the stuff that I found less interesting was like put to the forefront and then done in a very heavy-handed way, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's worth watching, especially because like I really think that for a lot of people, I don't. This is true for myself, but like for a lot of people, we don't really want to go back and think about the pandemic at all, and like lockdown, because it was just a really shitty time for everybody. Um, and for me, another part is like somewhat of a feeling of like shame of how like convinced I was that I was correct. I think I've talked about this before, but like I was like 100% convinced that all people who didn't follow all the like lockdown directives and like the mask mandate directives and didn't get vaccinated were wrong, and not only like incorrect but like doing something that was morally wrong. um and then in retrospect, like, well, I mean, well, first off, after things opened up again, I actually had the chance to like talk to people. Oh, by the way, like there were some people where like it not only hurt our relationship, but like I was just like not friends really with some people for a certain period of time because like I thought that they were just doing something morally wrong. But through like being in a position afterwards where I felt less afraid, like when things opened up again, I'm like, all right, well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack. So I'm like, I mean, a part of it is just like, okay, well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm going to be fine, which isn't necessarily the case, right? I mean, I got vaccinated several times, and like this year, for some reason, they've decided like, well, if you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine, you have to pay for it, which I think is bullshit. So I didn't get vaccinated this year, but yeah, there's just like lots of different aspects. So there was that. There was also the fact that like I think like a lot of people, as soon as things opened up, I was like, I am going to compartmentalize these past couple of years and just not deal with them. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like that is the past. Things are going to be as normal as they can be, and I'm just going to go on with my life. And in those moments, like I was able to like actually have conversations with people who had like different beliefs or like behavior that I disagreed with in the past, and I realized that like, sure, I think that there were some people who were like quite wrong and dangerously so. Like the majority of people were just like just had a different perspective. Like they weren't conspiracy theorists. They weren't like going out and like there's some people I talked to like who didn't get vaccinated who just stayed home. They just didn't go out because they were like, I understand that like this is dangerous and I don't want to get anybody else sick, but I don't want to get this vaccine either, so I'm just going to stay home. And then I started thinking about like, then I was like also able to think about like the way that non-vaccinated people were treated by the government. Like as soon as the vaccines started rolling out, and then we had these like vaccine passports, and not only that, but also like the way that the government used propaganda to manipulate people, myself included, to see these people who didn't get vaccinated as like dangerous and wrong and like really other them, you know? Even though I still believe like the correct thing to do was to get vaccinated, like the like socially correct thing to do. But also at the same time, like I am, and you like, look, here's the thing. I also fundamentally, like, a part of, like, my fundamental belief system is that you shouldn't, nobody should be forced to, like, do anything with their body that they don't want to do. I think people should be allowed to do whatever the fuck they want with their own bodies. Like, that's the only thing that we can really have any sort of, like, dominion over, is our own, like, flesh. And I was so afraid at that point that I was like, anything that can be done to, like, convince these people who are wrong and who are immoral to just get fucking vaccinated so that, like, we can go back to normal. I would be okay with. But, like, yeah, talking to people afterwards, I was just like, fucking hell, man. Like, I was so afraid. But then also, on the other side, that definitely existed. Like, people were so afraid of other things. They were so afraid of their freedom being taken away. They were so afraid of, and like as far as pharmaceutical companies go, like, there were definitely 100% legitimate fears to have about taking, drugs from these, like, greedy companies. And just, like, I also think that, like, multiple things can be true at the same time. Like, pharmaceutical companies can be awful and evil and greedy in some cases, but they can also, make, medications or vaccines that save people's lives, right? And so, I mean, to me, that's one of the most fascinating things to explore about that period, is, like, how people can be both right and wrong at the same time. How people were pushed into more and more extreme ways of thinking because of that fear, right? And how it's not as simple as being correct or incorrect, as being right or wrong. And there was a bit of that in the film, which I really appreciated. But then I just went in, like, another direction. Like, I do appreciate how, like, ultimately bleak the message was. It sort of just went off to one side. And because, yeah, like, to begin with, like, one thing I found really interesting, without going into spoilers, is, like, you'd have some characters who were, like, I would have a tendency to believe are, like, really incorrect about their way of seeing the world. Like, they're not, like, seeing reality. They're just not seeing reality, but they're also, like, really good people, and they're actually, like, better people generally than those who agree with my worldview, but act in a hypocritical way, and are ultimately beyond that trying to do more harm, even though in the moment they're correct, or, like, I agree with the way that they're acting. But yeah, it just goes off in another direction that, like, I don't know. And so it got me thinking about the pandemic and an album. I've already been talking for 20 fucking minutes. Okay, I'll finish this. And that's Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple, which came out in April of 2020. And so, like, her last album before that came out in 2012, and that was The Idler Wheel is Wiser Than the Driver of the Screw, and Whipping Cords Will Serve You More Than Ropes Will Ever Do, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. And out of nowhere, bam, we get this album, which I highly recommend listening to. It's fantastic. But it also came at the perfect moment, and it's sort of hard to describe, like, if you weren't a Fiona Apple fan at that point, like, what it was like to really just be, like, the beginning of, like, the lockdown, and just getting this, it felt like a gift. And of course, like, I mean, of course, you got all these fucking accolades, you know, everybody's album of the year and stuff like that. Pitchfork gave it a 10, which, I don't know, I found, strangely enough, despite the fact that I adore this album, I found the response to be a little much. And I think a lot of people, like, felt like they were getting this album, like, pushed at them. Um, I think it's great. And the song I want to talk about is "I Want You to Love Me," and that's the opening track, and it's a really beautiful track. And I just remember hearing that song for the first time and just feeling it like a sense of like excitement, but also relief of just like, oh my god, there's some beauty coming into the world and coming into my life in this like terrifying time. And the way that she like sustain, like when she sings "you," the word "you," and she sustains it with the piano, it's, oh my god, it's so beautiful. And yeah, it's a masterpiece, I think. And I hope she releases another album, but if she doesn't, sort of like with Radiohead, like, and I was gonna say Joanna Newsom, but Joanna Newsom is going to release another album. I mean, there's no way. Like it's been a few years, but she played like an album's worth of new material. If she doesn't record that, I don't understand. I just don't understand why she would do that. But sort of like with Radiohead, like if Radiohead never released another album, I don't care, because A Moonshaped Pool was an amazing way to end a career as a band, you know. And for Fiona Apple, if she never released another album again, Fetch the Bolt Cutters is a perfect way to. I mean, her discography is so amazing that it's just like, I don't care if she doesn't, right? Anyway, it's been like almost a half hour. My point is also just like we need to think. Not we need to. I think it would be healthy to start dealing with our feelings about the pandemic, because I have not. I've definitely like compartmentalized, and like if I'm like going back and like listening to like a podcast or something, you know, there's like episodes from the pandemic, I'll like avoid them. I don't want to go back to that psychological state. I don't even want to get anywhere close to it, which is why I think that Eddington is a part of an important process of going back and sort of like exploring and analyzing and figuring out what happened and how we feel about it and how it affects us now. I just am not a ginormous fan of how it was done. But hey, Joaquin Phoenix, amazing performance. Emma Stone, amazing performance. Pedro Pascal, amazing performance. Like everything is like, there's so many great elements, but it's just like, I heard on a podcast, listened to a bit afterwards, somebody said, it was a sardonic cast. I forget which person said that, you know, Ari Aster would maybe benefit from like writing with somebody else, just like getting somebody else in on the process. And I agree. Later tonight, excuse me. Later tonight, it is going to be getting colder, but not much colder. Negative 8 degrees Celsius. Let me just refresh because I've been talking for a while. Negative 8 degrees Celsius, 17 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 p.m. And then just going down a couple degrees, leaving us off at a negative 9 degrees Celsius, 16 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of the night. It's a little bit of wind, but it's not too bad, like a southwestern wind of 11 kilometers an hour, with wind gusts of 22 kilometers an hour. That's 7 miles per hour, and 14 miles per hour for the gusts. It's the half of the week is done. It's halfway done. Almost. Actually, a little bit more than halfway done. Anyway, have a great night. Check out Fiona Apple.